Welcome to Hope Follows. I'm your host, Julie Kensler, author, broadcaster, and friend to you on this journey of life. Here at Hope Follows, we share incredible, courageous stories of struggles and hard times, but it's the victory that we focus on. It's the hope that follows, and knowing that you're not alone. And if you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe. That would be lovely. And you'll go ahead and get every episode that comes out, you'll get notified. And you can also go to hopefollows.com for more information and further podcast episodes from years before, all kinds of topics. These are real life stories, real people bringing their stories to you. It's healing for them and it's healing for you and encouraging. So thank you for being here. And I am ready to get started with today's episode and bring on my friend, Dena Wall. Let's bring Dena to the stage. Hi, Dena.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Yes. Well, I was so grateful that you reached out to me and you encouraged me about restarting the Hope Follows show again, and that you shared of your book. So Dena has a book. You could see it behind her. And I have it right here. You Can Live Brave. I love the title. You Can Live Brave, Finding Faith and Strength When Loving an Addict Hurts.
Right.
Yes. So we're going to go into that story. But first, I want our friend watching to just learn about you. What are some things right now that you're excited about, you're passionate about?
I guess I've always been passionate about health and fitness. So I'm always in the gym. I'm married to a chiropractor, so we tend to go more on the natural side. I love to craft. So I have a craft studio in my house, and our other kids are very creative. And so we've always had crafting going on. And I also love to read. I read about 3 to 4 books a month on all kinds of topics, business, addiction, things that I'm dealing with, spiritual things, and just, biographies, things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's so encouraging for whoever is watching right now, for our friend to know that you could be going through a hard time, but it's important to take care of you.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a very important factor.
Yes. And I know I finished the book and I highly encourage people to buy it. Where can they get it?
They can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
What do you think the percentage is that a person is either directly related to or involved with a person who is an addict, addiction to drugs? It could be alcohol, any addiction. But what do you think the percentage is for drug-related addiction that that a person would have a family member or someone they know who is probably an addict or has been?
Yeah, it's extremely high. In fact, when my book came out and I put it on Facebook, just for anyone that, might be going through something similar, I was flooded with hundreds of messages from people that I know, but, used to be a neighbor or something like that. Oh, I heard they moved to Colorado. Well, the reason why they moved to a different state is to try to help their child with addiction. I honestly could not believe how many messages I received. So it's a very, very big problem across the board.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Definitely something we are going to be going into today.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's go over your book. Tell us a little bit about the format of it.
Well, I really wrote it to be a very easy read. Even though I am, I read a lot of books, I noticed that a lot of people really don't anymore. And so I really wanted to make sure that it was really small in nature, especially when you're going through something very painful. People don't tend to sit down and read a 400-page book. So that was my number one thing, is I wanted to make sure that it was really easy to read. You can sit down and read it in 45 minutes. And I also wanted to make sure that after each chapter, it gave really specific things that they can do to help themselves. obviously prayer is amazing. And yes, it's definitely my number one. But I always wanted to include very tangible things that people could do to help them along with prayer. So that's what I made sure that each chapter has at the end.
And a little bit later, I'm going to read some of those because I want to give our viewer, our friend watching, a little bit of a taste. And they're going to want this book. They're going to want to look at even the hindsight.
Yeah.
Those words, they
Mhm.
encouraged me. And I don't currently have anybody in my life right now who's struggling with addiction, but I have in the past. But I found it so helpful for going through any type of struggle.
Yeah, it's really a book. I mean, obviously, I'm going through this and I'm going to focus on more of an addiction situation. But it really is a book about if you've had a blueprint for your life and then all of a sudden it doesn't match your reality, like, what do you do with that? And that's another reason why I wrote the book. So you can pick up the book. I think it would be what I'm hearing from other people is that it's encouraging them in their own different struggles. It
Mhm.
may not be addiction, but it can be something else. And it's helping with that as well. Yeah.
You mentioned blueprint. So can you go ahead and elaborate on that? That is definitely the beginning of your story,
Hmm.
is the ideal, the dream, the blueprint you had
Right.
for your life, and then go into why it did not turn out
Okay,
that
I really don't know if anyone else out there really has a blueprint for their life, but I think you kind of do. You kind of think it's going to go along this certain way. I definitely had a set blueprint. I grew up in a house that was Christian based. I had great friends. Everything just kind of fell into place along the way, meaning it wasn't perfect, but I did well in school. I had a lot of friends. Then I just had this idea, great, I'll go to college, and that worked out well. And school came fairly easily to me. And then I was going to date, and even the guys before my husband, I dated really wonderful guys. They're still really wonderful guys, just weren't the right one, and that's okay. And then just things started, moving along, and I got a really great job when we first got married, and then here we are married, and that's when things started to change. When I just thought, well, I'll just get pregnant because nobody in my family had trouble getting pregnant. And then I started noticing, okay, things are not really following my little blueprint. And we were told after a year of trying that we were not going to be able to have kids naturally. And we didn't, back then, in vitro and things like that weren't really prevalent. So we just made a decision, well, okay, well, we'll go through the adoption process. I had worked in a Romanian orphanage before I met Kevin. And so I'd always had a little heartstring pulled for adoption. And so then we went that road. Um, but it was extremely difficult, just the infertility piece alone. For anyone out there that's experienced that, they know it's excruciating to be told that. And then you move from that to adoption. And that's another difficult thing because there's all this paperwork and they have to come through your house and make sure that you're approved to adopt. Then you go through talking to birth moms and losing adoption situations. And then we ended up adopting. And, even at that point, there was a lot of pain going through that. But I was like, I get to be a mom. This is going to be so amazing. Love conquers all. And I'm married to a doctor. So everything should work out fine. Oh, yeah. The birth father did some drugs, I heard. And the birth mom did a little bit of alcohol. And then my blueprint started to come back into place, but not really. So then it went on from there. We noticed there were some difficulties right when our daughter was about 2 or 3 years old. Yeah, we
Mhm.
started noticing some things, and I was like, okay, we have a little energetic little world conqueror here, and she's probably going to be, vice president of the United States. I mean, she was that strong willed. But then I started noticing at 5 years old, like things are really not going so well in school. So then we started going to counseling. So we went to counseling, and she went to counseling at 5 years old. And the doctor was basically like, well, you have a child that really needs to make their own choices. And so I was doing that. Do you want the blue cup and the red cup? Do you want the red shirt or the blue shirt? I mean, I was really trying it all. And then it just kept progressing. Okay, now we're in fourth grade. And by kindergarten to fourth grade, school was a complete nightmare. She was just not listening, wouldn't do her homework. Oh, I forgot it at school. I didn't know anybody that couldn't do their schoolwork in fourth grade. So then we went to the doctor and we started, all this time we've been going to counseling. Then we found out, well, she has ADHD. Well, we're very natural. You know, my husband's a chiropractor. We tried everything as far as health wise, like we did all natural supplements. We changed her diet. We took all the food, the red dyes out of her diet, you know, all of that stuff. And it wasn't working. And finally, the counselor said, you need to move in this direction and try this. Well, we tried it. And she was hiding, what I found out later, the pills all over the house. Because we had 2 other children at this point. We adopted, our daughter was 2.5, and then we adopted another child, and then we adopted another child 3 years later. So as we all know, 3 kids, super busy. My husband didn't come home till 7:30 at night with his job as a doctor, worked every Saturday. Patients would call on Sunday. I mean, it was a lot. And I noticed that the other 2 kids definitely had academic issues as well, because all of them come from drug situations. So I'm up at the table literally every night for years. And so I thought she was taking the medication. I found out later they were all over the house. So then it just kept getting worse. And we were at the same private Christian school because I thought, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And that would be the greatest environment for her. And I still don't know one way or another if I would have moved her and it would have changed anything. But she wasn't making friends. And we just couldn't figure out why, because she's super outgoing, adorable.
Yeah, I remember her.
But we just couldn't figure out why she wasn't able to connect. She was never invited to birthday parties.
Then the only diagnosis you had at that point was the ADHD.
That's it.
Right?
At that point. Yeah.
Now,
and we thought, well, maybe she needs horse therapy. So we purchased 2 horses for her because she was showing horses at Westworld. So we tried that. We said, oh, maybe she'll do better at a horse barn with other girls who know horses. And that didn't work out either. I mean, it did for a little period, and she was winning blue ribbons. She is really smart and really talented in a lot of different areas, creativity wise. But now we're hitting high school. And high school, as everyone knows, is just tricky. And it was terrible. And she wasn't going to the tutoring like she was supposed to. And they found her on the football field. And
so at what point did you realize that she had a drug addiction?
well, you know, backing up, I've never even had alcohol my entire life. So I don't know anything about drugs, alcohol. I've never seen any drugs, or I've never been around people who had that. Like I said, I lived in like this little bubble. So we started noticing some really, really bad behavior at home now and at school. Every day was just very stressful. So then we ended up sending her to a boarding school, a Christian boarding school in Indiana. And we thought, okay, this is going to be great. We checked it out. Very reputable. We visited there before. We told her, wonderful Christian compound with horses and beautiful, and she could work in the horse barn, and they would help her with school. It was 4 teachers to 1 person. There was way more stories that happened when she came back from the boarding school that were not good. And all of a sudden she was 18. Okay. At 8, and I never kicked her out. We were just trying to help her. We finally got her to graduate high school. But if you live in the house, you have to work or you can go to school. And she's like, okay, well, she was laying on the couch forever. And she finally got a job at Jack in the Box. Okay. And by our house, she could walk there. And we were like, okay, well, it's something. Well, she met a girl there. And all of a sudden one day, and this is where it kind of starts. And I think it started before that, Julie. I do. Yeah. But I was kind of oblivious to it because she was always with us.
I think that's more common than we want to believe. Even being right there, there are ways for them to get around it.
Yeah. And I knew that she would kind of dabbled in a little bit of vaping because she went to a math tutoring place. And she, like I said, she can make a friend like that. So I think that some stuff started happening there. Well, she's 18. She's working at Jack in the Box. She comes home. And all of a sudden I go, what are you doing? Oh, this is my friend. Oh, hi. I'm trying to be nice. Oh, she's packaging up all her stuff in her room. I go, wait, what's happening? She goes, oh, I'm moving in with her. I go, well, you don't have a car, because we didn't want her to do that right at that point. And we said, well, you don't have a car. Oh yeah, we're going to be on the same work schedule because she's my boss. And so she just left the house, like, see you later, mom. Like, not, it wasn't a fight. It wasn't anything like that.
Mhm.
She didn't want to obey the rules ever. And so she wanted to go live with this girl so she could do whatever she wants. Why don't you just come back? We were always trying to get her back on track.
Yeah.
But she's very headstrong and would not listen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I know that definitely when she was over there, that she met a guy and started dating, and he's a fentanyl dealer. So
Okay.
on her 21st birthday, she tried fentanyl. Before that, I really have no idea. Could have been this, that, and the other thing, dabbled here and there. She was, acting erratic when she would stop by the house. But I know on her 21st birthday, he gave her that.
Oh, that's hard, because then it gets to a point where you don't even know what type of influence you have anymore. And so during those really difficult times, I mean, your book describes it all, the torment
Mm-hmm.
that you went through as a mom,
Mm-hmm.
thinking, what did I do wrong?
Oh, yeah.
And, and what did I miss?
Yeah.
And so living with that pain, as I said, friend watching, you got to read the book to hear Dena's true heart, and know the love that she has for her children, and for this daughter in particular, just wanting to draw her back.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point, I mean, the heartbreak, you talk about how you can still live a beautiful life. I feel like that could be another subtitle.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you become this person who was deep into depression and heartbreak, and being able to live a joy-filled life still?
Yeah, I want to speak to that because it's not like, oh, all of a sudden I'm just like this joyful person.
Right.
I went through severe depression to the point where there was a point where I wanted to take my own life.
Yeah.
And I've never been that kind of person. Like, I'm a very solid, came from a solid background, married into a solid guy, but the guilt and the shame as a mom, wondering, and I know there are moms watching this because I talk to moms all the time about this. What did I do? I must have been my parenting. I must have done something wrong. Okay, because I remember feeling that. I don't care what any counselor says, it has to be because I was with her the most of the time. But let me tell you, it is not your fault. It is not your fault, because we all have choices to make in life. I mean, when I was in high school, I was a part of the popular group in high school, but I knew who was dealing drugs, and if I wanted them, I could go get them. But you have choices to make. And of course, all through her life, we told her not to do drugs and everything, but she was making these choices. So after many years of counseling, serious, like intense, like every other week counseling, I finally got to a point where now I realize it's not my fault, and that she's living her life, and I am praying like I can't tell you how many times I pray a day. There's no way. And I pray for her and I lift her up and everything. But I also, aside from her, have a family. And I write that in my book, how I drew a circle with my family in the middle and I'm on the outside, because I'm on the outside because God has a plan for every single one of us, separate from you being a mother and a wife and all these titles that you have, or even an entrepreneur or whatever you have title. Separate from that, he has a plan for your life. And so I finally was like, you know what? That's right. And I can still have this pain that is not over. Like, I'm still in the middle of it. And I can still have joy and entertain the things that God has given me to serve and help my family and those around me.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that,
Yeah.
Dena. And uh, tell our friend watching, how long has it been since you've been able to see your daughter and have a conversation with her?
I have not seen her in 6 years. And the pain of that is pretty excruciating because I'm always on the lookout for her. I'm wondering where she is. All these thoughts that I have to take captive, as the Bible says, is I have to do that every day, because I could think, is she in Mexico? Is she being trafficked? Is she, all these scenarios that run through my mind. And I have to just lay it at the altar. And like I say in the book, every day I picture myself walking down a mountain and laying her at the altar and saying, she's yours, God, before she was mine. So I'm going to trust that whatever happens, you're going to be with me and her. And I just have to trust in that. So I had a conversation with her, and it was very short and bittersweet on April 2024. She just randomly called me out of the blue. And like I said, it's bittersweet because she's usually high. And I'm trying to beg her, tell me where you are, Mom, I'm okay. And then she says to me, I think I might get a tent tomorrow. Do you know how that feels as a mom when you're living in this beautiful home and her room is still completely empty, and she says that she might get a tent tomorrow? And I'm like, you don't know what to say, because you know you have a short conversation, so you're trying to be encouraging, but at the same time you're like, let me come get you. And she's like, I'm gonna be good, Mom, I'm gonna be fine. Like, she just never wants to tell me like where she's at. But not every time, I've only talked to her a couple times in 6 years, but both of those times I've said, can I pray over you? And she always says yes. So I always pray over her, God's protection and blessing and healing. And I pray healing over you in Jesus' name, that kind of prayer. And then I always tell her, you are so loved. We're waiting for you to come back home to get well. You never want to give her the picture that she can just come back into our home and be like, move in without any healing. Because we have other children. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to share a couple of your hindsights for our friend watching, because I want them to see you have done work, just like when I lost my sister to a drunk driver. And then the verdict was not guilty. And then another year or two later, her husband takes his life. It's like tragedy. How do you deal with it? You work on it.
Yeah.
And you really do. And joy does return. Everything's going to look differently, and you'll always have that pain. Right. And so I want to share a couple of these. Take a time out if you're facing something difficult as a couple. So this is for couples. Don't push each other away. Give yourselves time to be still. Life-altering situations need space, not pressure. I like that one. I have a bunch of these I really like. I'm not going to read them all because you need to go buy the book, friend. Stay the course. Get your child into consistent counseling. I know that you said it was inconsistent at times, because it was frustrating. What else and who else could you have seen that you could encourage a parent watching that is dealing with some difficult struggles with their child and they're not getting answers?
Okay, first I want to go back to what you said about the couples. Anytime you have a situation like this, it can cause a lot of problems in a marriage. In fact, even one of the counselors said, I cannot believe you guys are still together after going through all of this and then having 2 other kids that have some special needs with academics and different things. But you do need to give that other person grace. Like, okay, you want to talk about it and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it, vice versa. Just allow everybody in the family to have grace as they're grieving. Because if you put pressure on the other person that they're not grieving like you are, that is disaster. Okay, one of the things that I wish I would have done. Now, I think it's hard to look back and to beat yourself up over things you should have done. But I guess if I were to give advice, I took her to a doctor. I spent $3,000 for 8 hours of testing. And the doctor came back and just said, oh my gosh, what a lovely kid. She just has ADHD. I wish I would have listened to my gut and said, I think we need to go somewhere else. because she was eventually, through the many stories, which I won't go into, she went into a mental hospital for 4 days, and they did a real check on her and found out she had borderline personality disorder, which really matched up with what I saw through her life. So I guess I would just say trust your gut on that. If you feel like you're not getting the answers from the person, go somewhere else.
Yep, absolutely. I know that my mom would always, she was a nurse, and she would always say, get 3 opinions, wherever you
That's
go.
so true. I
And
guess I was just so desperate. And this person said, oh, I went there and it was so great. And I was like, okay, well, where do you sign me up? Let's just go get her tested. And,
well, you get an answer. So you think, okay, this is it. But
yeah,
now, we're here sharing this story. I want to encourage our friend watching. And if you know somebody who is struggling with a child, a family member who is facing some addiction issues, whatever it is that they're dealing with, get extra support.
right.
Like Dena said, go see another doctor,
Mm-hmm.
get all the answers that you need.
Yeah, it gets a little tricky after they turned 18 because they can make their own decisions on things. So I couldn't force her to go to the Dream Center, or wherever, and House of Refuge. I know all the places because I'm involved in fighting sex trafficking in Arizona. So I know too much stuff, really. But I have contacts in all those places, and I could have made a call in like a minute. But, you prod and plead and prod and plead, and people make choices.
They do.
And there's consequences that come with choices, good and bad. And what are you going to do?
There's a wonderful organization, National Alliance for Mental Illness, I believe it is, NAMI, and they have great support groups for siblings, for parents, for children, when they're dealing with a family member who has mental health concerns and struggles. And then, of course, addiction on top of it. And it is a very tricky situation. You're right. When they become 18 and older, and they're going to have to be the ones to ultimately decide they're ready for that help. And in the meantime, some other things that Dena has shared from her book were gift giving. So she mails little gifts to people regularly on her daughter's birthday, and asking God, who needs a surprise gift, and send one in her honor. Do you say it's in her honor, or it's just something between you and the Lord?
No, it's just something between me and the Lord, and I just send it out. And I know the UPS guys so much that I know when they're getting their hair cut. I mean, that's how much I go to the UPS store. But I'm always thinking about how I can bless somebody else, but especially on her birthday. And I think it's really important when you're going through something really difficult. You hear about, serving others really does. It really does matter, and it really helps you and it helps them. And, if I can't bless my daughter on her birthday, well, then I want to bless somebody else. So I do that every year, which is coming up May 1st.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Dena, for sharing. I know that this is a very, a story that you experienced, you and your husband, your other children, and not something you can wrap up in 30 minutes on a podcast. And so we've given our friends watching a taste of this. You need to get the book because there is a story in here. We're not going to tell you about it right now, but there is a story about how Dena met her daughter's father.
Right. And the power of prayer in that.
Yes. Do you want to tell a tiny bit of that?
I'll tell a tiny bit. I always prayed for all of my kids' birth parents that they would accept Christ. I knew birth father went to jail for drugs. I didn't know jail and prison were even two different things. This is how I didn't know what was going on in the drug world. Anyway, I thought he went there for drugs. So I just prayed for his salvation for 20 years. In my journal, his name, praying for him. And then in 2020, I was at the computer. God told me to look him up, make a long story short. He was in prison for 20 years because he was head of the largest gang in Arizona. Okay, just that alone, right? Scary. He's ripped to shreds, 6'2", big guy, and he accepted Christ.
Oh, wow.
And I just bawled my eyes out. The Channel 3 did the news interview and they said, dude, like, what happened? He goes, I accepted Christ. And I was like, what? So made some calls, blah, 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 went down to the place that he worked at. And I tell the story in detail about how I'm sitting there
Yes.
and he comes out. It's what he's doing in the state of Arizona is miraculous. He is teaching Bible studies everywhere. He's really amazing, and he's been a great comfort and support to me.
Yeah.
But it's a story
Yes.
about the power of prayer.
Mm-hmm. It is had me in tears. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so as we close out our time here, there's 3 words that you have said that keep you upright, and that really you could be bent over on your knees, you know, your eyelashes you described, your counselor described, on the floor just praying, passed out or praying, you know, whatever it is. It's a physical experience when you have this kind of trauma and grief behind any loved one, but especially your child.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have these 3 words. Can you tell our friend watching those 3 words?
That's a little mini theory I made up myself. It's called
I love it.
It's called the I don't know theory. And what it is when you get super stressed and you just can't figure out the situation. Where is she? What is she doing? How can I do it? What can I do? You just say, I don't know, but God knows. And say it out loud if you can, and if you can't, say it in your spirit. But it will release you of a lot of pressure, because the fact is God is bigger than us, right? And for us type A's who like to fix and do things like that, we think that we can handle it. But God is way bigger, and his plans are bigger. And if you just say, you know what, I don't know where she is, but God knows. I don't know what doors she's opened in her life, but God does. It will release a lot of pressure off of you, whatever situation you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Dena.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes, please tell our friend watching the name of the book again.
It's called You Can Live Brave, and then the subtitle is Finding Faith and Strength While Loving an Addict Hurts. And you can get it on Amazon or through Barnes and Noble. And I hope it blesses you. I hope it helps people. I know it's helping. I'm getting a lot of messages and emails. And so I'm just putting our story out there in hopes that it will encourage people and really help other people know basically that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think that's a really helpful thing to know, is that you're not alone if you're dealing with this.
I'm going to go ahead and close in prayer now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord, for this time, for Dena's boldness, her courage, her faith that has gone through so many ups and downs, and that you brought her to this point where she has put it into writing and shared her journey. Let it be an encouragement to so many people. And especially I pray, Lord, that you will bring a sweet reunion with this family and their daughter. And we just pray for protection over her, and that that she will run home just ready and willing to reconcile and rebuild. We thank you for that, God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Julie.
Yes, I like to leave our friends watching with my big idea jar.
Okay.
And so I pick out a little piece of paper.
Okay.
And well, you can't read it because it might be too hard, but I'll read it.
Just read it. Yeah.
And then you can give a little bit of tip and add on to this. Write a thank you note to your doctor office, remembering a time they were especially helpful and encouraging. What do you think about that?
Writing a note to your doctor's office?
Yes.
Oh, well, my husband's a doctor, so he would greatly appreciate that. And I am a big proponent on handwritten little thank you notes that I send out all the time to people. I used to do it to the janitor at our kids' school
You
because
see, that's
I
good.
thought it was so amazing. I come to the school and it looks so nice. So I'm a big proponent on that.
Okay, friend watching, let's get out our pens and stationery. Let's write some notes to a doctor who has been, or anyone who
Yeah,
you see, working hard in your place of employment, your kids' school. Let them know. I mean, I think that's so underrated. The gift
definitely.
of a thank you note.
Definitely. And I still make my kids write them, and they're 22 and 25. And they're like, Mom, we can just send text. I go, get the paper out. We're doing it.
I know.
Still.
Same here. Same here. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Dena,
Okay. Well,
for being
thank
on
you,
Hope Follows.
Julie.
Okay.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye. Friends, thank you again for being here on Hope Follows with Julie Kensler. What a fantastic and emotion filled story and testimony and sharing from Dena Wall. I'm so grateful for her. Thank you again for watching. Remember to like this video, share it with others wherever you can. Let's put it out on social media. Let's share it with someone that you know is struggling with some family member that is estranged or any type of difficulty they're facing. This has been an encouraging episode. We have learned so much on how to still live in the hard things, but have some hope and some joy through it and still live a beautiful life. You can go to hopefollows.com for more resources and for all the previous episodes that we have aired. Remember, when you're facing your difficult time, you're not alone, that there is hope to follow. And until next time, friends, so long.